What I did get was a whole lot of life experiences, and I didn't realize what I learned for a really, really long time, decades, to be honest, because I am that slow. And it's only now, looking back, that I can put things into perspective and relate things from sports to normal life. And there are 6 key insights that I want that I'd like to share with you. And the very first one is the importance of picking your team wisely. It's immensely important to pick the right team because this is where learning happens. And my guidance in picking a team is to pick the best team that will still accept you. And the reason why this is important is the way you learn is to learn from people who are better than you. So you aim as high as you possibly can. So you work with people who are really, really good. Also, really good teams have great coaches. So this is totally accelerated learning. And you also want to normalize high performance. If you're going to the Olympics, you don't wake up every morning and go, oh my God, I'm going to the Olympics. Because everyone you know is going to the Olympics too. Your entire team is, or your mates are going. It's completely normal. And normalizing that high performance is something that is really, really helpful, and it helps you work harder. And being the worst player on the best team is something that's absolutely not fun. I remember being 16 and being on the national team and trying to figure out how I should relate to those really old people who were about 25 or 28. There's a formal you and informal you in Austria, and it took me ages trying to figure out which one I should use with those grown-ups. I also worked so hard that I would hide it for everything, but I'd cry myself to sleep a lot of the time because it's really, really bloody hard to be the worst player on the best team. And I think this is something we also should do in our professional lives. We want to pick our companies wisely. We want to be hired by the best company that would possibly still hire us. If we choose our teams within a company, we want to pick the best team. And if you're lucky enough to work in an organisation where you're allowed to pick your own team, such as TradeMe or the ASB, where you can use self-selection, and we ask people who are allowed to do this, use 3 guidelines. What can I learn? What can I teach? And is this fair to my company? If you're not that lucky that you can choose within your organisation, hey, I spent a year of my life writing a book about how to do exactly that. And it's possible to get there and be allowed to pick your own team. And this is something I still do. I try to surround myself with people who are better than me. This is me at Agile Australia learning how to do a proper Tim Tam Slam. And when I talk to people who are better than me, there's something where I think we need to consider ourselves really, really lucky. Because what I wasn't aware of moving to New Zealand was we're a really small country. So it's not that hard being top 5 in New Zealand, whatever you do. And what happens if you're top 5 in one country is that the other top 5s in other countries start talking to you. So you have access to really, really good people. And like in sports, you start out being the worst person on the best team. But over time, if you work hard, you're a normal member of that team. I also believe it's really important to know when to go. There's this thing we seem to have in professional life, that it's unfair to leave a team, it's unfair to leave a job, you're letting people down, how are they going to feel about it? No one in sports would ever do this. It's okay. If you've outgrown your team, you've got to leave. The moment you're the best player on your team, you've got to figure out where else you can learn. And it's okay to do so, and I think we need to get there. There's a really good book about teaming and reteaming, written by Heidi Halfand. And she talks about how teams need to get together, become a team, dissolve, and people just moving on. And I think one of the criteria for moving on and changing teams is when you are the best player. Collaboration is key, and I'm really not telling you anything new here, I hope. We also all knew collaboration is really hard. And the better you get at something, the better the team is that you play in, the harder it gets. And the reason it gets harder is that diversity increases. When you play on a handball team or any other sports team on a top level, people are chosen 100% by merit. I played handball with people I didn't like. I played handball with people who are racist assholes. But if they're the best left wing in the country, I still want to play with them. Hasn't always been that extreme, but it's people from very, very different backgrounds, socioeconomically, racially, not gender that much on a women's handball national team. But everything else was pretty much all over the place. And I do believe that this is also happening in our workplaces. This is what you do when you can't find a good picture, by the way. You always use can't. In Auckland, 41% of people are not born in New Zealand. I used to live in Amsterdam, 45%. And then I have a look at the tech industry here and everywhere else. We're not very diverse. And what that tells me is that we're probably not the best team that we could be because we are missing out on people. And I think that's something we really got to work on. And there's another thing that I want to challenge, and I alluded to it by having played handball with people that I didn't necessarily like. And I want to challenge the notion that people, in order to be on a team and perform really well, need to like each other. Because my experience tells me they don't. It's not a problem if you do like each other. It's okay to have friends on the team, but it's not a prerequisite. The only prerequisite that we have is that there is safety, that we trust each other within our field, and we are safe to make mistakes with each other. There's even research here to back this. Google, since 2012, looked into heaps and heaps and heaps of teams, and they published a paper based on Project Aristotle. And what they wanted to find out was how can they predict team performance? Can they predict performance based on team design? And what are the traits of really good teams? And they found out there's only one single thing that all the really awesome teams had in common. And that was that they trusted each other and were safe with each other. And in order to get there, when diversity widens, when we are more and more different from each other, and there's more work to put into making this work, it becomes even more important that we have a glue of cohesion. That glue of cohesion is a shared purpose. If you want to go to the Olympics, it's a shared dream. If this is at work and your team at work, you should have an external shared purpose too. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really hard not to focus on all the small differences, but to actually pull in the same direction for something that's worth it. With all those people, there's a book called The No Asshole Rule. Has anyone read it? It's a really good book. It's by Bob Sutton, and he has actually put a cost on having one asshole on a team. And what he means by that is, in sports, that's the player who does his own thing, or her own thing. The player who doesn't pass, who's just going for the goal to score the winning goal. And those people exist at work too. That's the person who hoards information, who withholds information and doesn't share. That's the developer who refuses to test. That's the tester who refuses to learn a little bit of coding, or any other combination. I'm not just going after developers and testers. But when this is the case, when you find someone like this on your team, you've got two options. One is you're going to make them change behaviour. It's the preferred option. And ultimately, if you can't, you've got to get rid of them. And in order to make people change behaviour, you're going to be really good at both giving and receiving feedback. There are two types of feedback. One is feedback on the field. When we are in the middle of a game, I need the feedback right here and right now. It's completely useless to me if I get it at halftime or after the game. You got to tell me that the third time that you play the ball right behind me, I'm going to be able to shout at you and say, right, put it where I'm going to be half a second from now, not where I was half a second ago. And it needs to come from absolutely everyone, from your coach, from the worst player, from the junior player, and the oldest player, and the best player. Sorry. If this is important feedback, you need to give it, and you also need to deal with it when you receive it. But there's also the other feedback. That's the feedback off the field. And feedback off the field is anything that can wait a little bit. And to me, in a team, in a world-class team, there should be no undiscussables. I had a personal experience when I was around 19. I thought it was a really good idea to go out, have a good time, drink a lot, have fun. Until one of the older players actually took me aside and said, right, look, Sandy, this is not on. You think this is your business, but it's actually not. Because if you are not giving 100%, you're cheating me. Because I'm doing everything I can to get us to the Olympics, and you're not, and this is unfair. And I think we need to call those kind of behaviours out, whether it's in sports or in professional life. There's a really cool feedback quadrant that I read on a blog. It's by, a mentee of Sheryl Sandberg. And she puts feedback into 4 quadrants. And there's one axis, which is, there's something you don't like. Do you challenge it directly or not? The other one is, how much do you care? Do you personally care? And the quadrant you want to be in is the radical candor. You really, really care about someone and someone's performance, and you're open and direct around the feedback. If you don't care about that person and you just tell them off, it's kind of just obnoxious aggression. And then there's something that I think we all need to work on. This is getting out of the ruinous empathy quadrant. Ruinous empathy is when you care, and you care so much that you don't want to hurt the other person. Really recently, we asked a company to help us with marketing, to look at what I could do to get more keynotes. And one of the things that they said was, oh, she's really hard to understand. Maybe she should change her accent if she wants to present in the US. The problem with that was they didn't tell me. They told my business partner because they were so scared they would hurt my feelings. And to me, I felt really, really cheated. This is really valuable information that I can use immediately, and instead of giving it to me, someone decides to be in the ruinous empathy corner and cheat me for that really valuable feedback. But when you do receive feedback, it is incredibly important to consider the source. And I learnt this from this guy. This guy is called candor, and he was one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. He's a guy from Montenegro. And he taught me that lots of people have an opinion, and they're not necessarily qualified. If any of you guys told me I need to change the position of my hand when throwing, honestly, I'd laugh in your face. And the same goes if you're a professional athlete and your sponsor tells you what to do on the field, or the audience tells you, just go, whatever. And the same thing we need to do in professional life. There's some people we need to trust, and there's some people we just need to ignore and disregard because they're not qualified to give us feedback. When we do have coaches, however, or mentors, people we trust, we should listen. Because in sports, we pay professional coaches to give us feedback. So when someone pays for us, a coach, in our work life, and we trust that person, we should listen and at least give it a try to do what they say. It is also immensely important to never ever stop learning. And learning, I hate learning. It's really uncomfortable. It's really hard. It's not fun at all. And when you learn, you really don't look good. Because when you push yourself, you can't spend any energy even thinking about what you look like or what other people think of you. So I'd like to encourage all of you to do what athletes do. Just have the courage to be really ugly while you learn. Because I do believe that when you take your mind out of the outcome and just stay in the moment, you'll slowly get there over time. But there does come a time, if you consistently do this, where you actually outgrow your idols. Where those posters of those amazingly great players need to come off the walls. Because you're there, but you still need to get better. And that's when you know you're actually on your own. Because you can't do what you've always done in the past. And you can't do what other people have done before you. There's no path to follow. So you need to start taking risks. And I'm almost 3 times a day, do I hear someone in the Agile community say, fail early, fail often. Yes, absolutely. But I'd like to extend it. Fail early, fail often, but give a shit. Because when you are an athlete and you try something, you try really hard and you fail, it's horrible. It hurts. You play games where you're so embarrassed at the end that you just want to dig a tunnel under the court to get out of this court. And I think in professional life, whether we are doing product development or trying to achieve mastery in what we do, yes, try different things. But when you fail, don't shoot yourself, but care. Because when it hurts emotionally, this is the place that gives you motivation to try again and to learn. And I do believe that no idea is a bad idea until you've tried it. This is something I've seen at TradeMe. There's a squad, and they have invented trial balloons. When someone has an idea, well, it's an idea that might fly or not fly. So you put it into a trial balloon, and if it flies, it stays there. If it doesn't, you just take it off again. And over time, I think it is really important for people to keep evolving. If you're a developer, teach yourself more than one programming language. If you're a tester, teach yourself how to code. Same for a BA. If you wonder what executives actually do, start talking to them. And just push yourself and try to learn new things. Because I think if we all do that, basically, I think the world's going to be a better place because we all increase the level of performance. This is something that happens in sports. You've seen a rugby game from 30 years ago, from 20 years ago. Those people are slow, they're unskilled, it doesn't look great. And this is because everyone has kept pushing themselves. So overall, sports itself has evolved and become better. And this is happening in all sports, and I think and hope this happens in professional life too. And my last point is that I think it's really important to be deliberate about your career. If you pick your team wisely, if you keep working hard, keep failing and improving over time, you will have a great career. What I think is important though, in order to be able to take those risks and take new things, to have some kind of a safety net. And since I had my very, very first job as a junior developer, I've always had 2 months of salary on a bank account. And that money is untouchable. It's my fuck off money. I never want to be forced to work in a company and not being able to leave. Because if I'm stuck somewhere and I've stopped learning or I don't believe in the purpose of that organisation, I want to be able to leave. And I do need a safety net in order to be able to take those risks. Which gets me to one of my favourite places, which is the place where you feel fear. When you take risks and you try new things, I think Whenever you feel excitement and fear, you know you're in the right place. All of this, I promise, is going to get you the good gigs. You'll have the emotional agility to deal with everything and anything that's being thrown at you. For me, a long time after I actually was at the Olympics, I'm still really, really happy that I had a career in professional sports. I've learned a whole lot, and even worst case, it has prevented me from becoming an Austrian fashion model in lederhosen. So to sum up, to be world class, be sure to pick your team wisely, know when to go, it's okay to leave, collaborate, even though it's really hard, be good at giving and receiving feedback, never stop learning, and be deliberate about your career. I like it to see a row of iPhones coming at me, or a phone. And this is all I have to say about the topic. Thank you very much.